Good morning, everybody. This is Zach at it again. I'm your host, Zach Cooley, and today's a very special day. Today is my father's 80th birthday, and I'm happy to have him on the phone with me. Happy birthday, Pop. Thank you for being with me.
Oh, thank you, Zach. Love you, buddy.
Love you, too. And so happy to get to celebrate this day. I wish I could be with you in Merle's Inlet, where you are.
Yeah, very nice day here. The sun's shining. It's nice and warm. Just looking at the water and the waterfowl, enjoying the day.
Yep, well, we're having nice weather here, too. It's about 70 degrees, one of the last 70-degree days we'll have for the season. So I'm outside trying to enjoy it, but it's been a nice day here, too. But I just want to go over several things. There's a lot of things that we know and have already discussed, but things that I think are interesting for you to share with listeners. First of all, you grew up with two of the best people in the world that you could have for parents. You grew up on a farm. You talk a lot about farm living and rural living, and what do you think is some things that you learned that are most important from your parents? Because I know you certainly learned a lot from them, and they were two very different people.
I guess I learned self-sufficiency because when I was growing up on the farm, we didn't have electricity. We didn't have running water in the house. We were poor, but we didn't know it. We didn't know we were poor because we always had food on the table, and we worked hard and had a great life. It's just, my dad was a hard worker, my mother was a hard worker, and we just lived a good life on the farm. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
And so the thing about your parents is that they had very little of what would be required today as an academic education, but they were both very smart and resourceful people.
Very intelligent people. Neither one of them had high school. Back in those days, you had to walk to get there. And my mother had to walk to school over the hill about 3 miles to get to her school, and that was literally over a hill, a mountain, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, she didn't go on to school, but they were very intelligent people and very resourceful and knew how to survive. And it was just a great life. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Well, your dad, of course, my grandfather, was a World War II veteran. He saw things and was witness to things that he probably never spoke of, could never speak of. But he was a man of very few words, but when he spoke, everybody sort of paid attention. Cause he did.
Well, I did for sure.
Yeah, I know you.
I for sure did. I saw him in 1945 on this very day, October 25th, for the first time. I was 3 years old. And he was a good man, but he was tough, and I always knew that he was in charge.
And you were the oldest.
I was the oldest.
Of three.
Yes.
And the oldest, I guess more was expected of you from him. Is that so?
I guess it was just, different because, here he was, a man back from the war. He'd been in the war for years and comes home and he's got a 3-year-old son. I'm sure, he was dealing with a lot internally from the war, and it was tough, but he took it out on hard work and did great. And I admire him for what he did, and I admire him for being tough on me because he made me see the light.
Well, and
a little easier on my two brothers because he mellowed out a little bit over the years. But he was a good man.
And there's 8 years separating each one of your brothers, Mike and Doug, and everybody knows Doug. He followed your footsteps in being a police officer and went on to a very successful career on his own, and he's now the resource officer at Spiller, where his favorite great niece Bella is there, and she loves that he's there. And they're very close, and I'm glad.
Yeah, he retired after a very successful career, and he was, of course, managed the Southwest Police Academy and Bristol, training all the troopers and police officers and sheriffs in Southwest Virginia, and he really did a great job. And now he's retired and enjoying being the part-time SRO. Well, it's full-time SRO, but it's kind of a part-time job for him. But he loves it and loves being with the kids. I'm surprised he does love it as much as he does. I talked to him this weekend. He was just couldn't say enough about his job. Enjoys it.
Well, they love him there, and Bella loves him being there. That's your granddaughter and his great niece, and my little girl, and his grandchildren are there too. So that's a good thing.
Oh, absolutely.
And then of course, there's my Uncle Mike, the middle brother. Unfortunately, we lost him not 9 years ago next month. And I would imagine that in your life you've had some tough things, but I don't know much that was tougher than that, because that was very sudden and very difficult for all of us to process. So I would imagine, being his older brother, that was one of the most difficult things you had to endure.
Yeah, that's about as tough as it gets. Like you said, I was 8 years older than him, and he used to follow me around on the farm where we used to play, and I taught him to throw ball, and we'd get down on a quilt in the backyard and box and play, and he was we were very close, and even got closer through the years. And it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to face, was losing him. Yeah.
And Mike was a wonderful guy. He was the easygoing uncle for me. He always had a very bubbly personality, and he would have me and my sister to his house for weekends, and I have a lot of wonderful memories having conversations with him over. He loved Breyers vanilla with chocolate syrup, and we've had a lot of great conversations over ice cream, and he was one heck of a great guy.
Oh yeah, he was a very successful man in industry. Did great, and was looking forward to his retirement in just a few years. But unfortunately, he was unable to get there, and it's just heartbreaking.
Yeah, it really is. But he was a super guy, and couldn't do this without talking about him, because he was very special, and he looked just like you. Everybody thought he was you.
We did favor. He might have been a little better looking, younger, but we did look a lot alike.
Well, I remember one time telling him that you look just like my daddy did 8 years ago, and he said, "Oh Lord, I believe I'll have to have an operation." And he'd laugh. Yeah, he was very hardworking, but he had an excellent sense of humor, and always an uplifting person.
He was the best.
Yeah. So, but coming back to your parents, your daddy was the best gardener and best carpenter that anybody had ever seen. I've got a desk in there that he made for me when I was about 6 years old. That's now Bella's, and she uses it every day, and we just cherish that.
He's a very talented woodworker, and one of the best gardener I've ever seen. I miss his tomatoes.
Yep.
So bad. Good, the best tomatoes I've ever eaten, and I haven't had one that good since. But he was raised in a time where if you needed something fixed, if something broke, you had to fix it yourself. And he just he could do anything, from repair a car to make things or build things or whatever he had to do. Because that's the way he was raised. That's what he did. If something needed to be done, he had to do it.
And he whittled something, just sitting and whittling something, and made a toy out of it, didn't he? What was that?
Yeah, you have one out in your building out there. It's a little gnome-like thing that rolls on a roller. It's hard to explain, but it's a neat little thing, neat little toy, and it could carve and cut just about anything.
And then we come to Granny, who I'm a little partial to her because I was her favorite, and she certainly was mine too. The first real heartbreak in my life was when she passed away when I was just 7 years old, younger than Bella. She also passed away very suddenly.
Yeah, that was extremely hard on the family, especially my dad.
And he was never the same again after that.
No.
But she was the best cook that there ever was.
Great. Yeah. I wish I could have one of her meals right now.
Yeah, I could go for one myself, and everything
with a butterscotch pie for dessert.
Yep.
It's great.
Well, Emily makes me. That's what she makes me for my birthday now. I don't have a birthday cake. She makes me a butterscotch pie, and the reason I like that is because hers was the best, and only one that could rival hers was her sister Annie.
Yeah.
Annie could. They were best friends, and they were probably the most alike. And I adored both of them very much, as I know you did. And she made a quilt that we still use today. And I wish I had more of the quilts that she made, but the stuff that she made lasts forever.
Yeah, I've got a couple of quilts as well.
And she made it all, and you can see the World War II plane patchwork on it. You can tell how old it is because it's those old planes like they flew in World War II that was on the patch, and you can tell how old it was. But it's lasted, and it's the one that Bella covers up with every night because she says it's cool and it's not too it's not too heavy, and Granny would just love that.
Absolutely, she would.
She would think that Bella is as extraordinary as we do. So anyway, let's see. I wanted to ask you too. Following graduation, you went into the Coast Guard, and you spent 4 years there, I believe, 3 or 4.
4 years.
4 years, and you were a radio operator. And what would you say was your most memorable moments of that? Because I've done a whole book on your career, so I have your law enforcement career pretty well covered. But that's something that I didn't get to discuss much.
I'll have to say, being an old country boy, never seen the ocean before.
Mm-hmm.
Saw the ocean for the first time when I was 19 years old, going into Cape May, New Jersey for boot camp.
Was that exciting or was that scary?
Well, it was both exciting and a little scary for something totally foreign to me, like the ocean. And I went from boot camp to a ship, and I spent 2.5 years on a ship, which was not my forte, I must say, for a while, but I got used to it, and I enjoyed being at sea and enjoying just being out there.
So you had some motion sickness for a while, huh?
I did when I first began, and that's what made it so tough. But I kind of got that beat by taking Dramamine and learned to stay up with the old salts, which I did eventually, and after that, it was kind of enjoyable being out there, seeing the sea and seeing the porpoise. jump along beside us and the dolphins, and we were just amazing. Of course, we were up in the North Atlantic a lot, which was really, really rough. It was too tough to be outside. It was cold, and the sea was so rough you couldn't go topsides. You had to stay underneath. So it didn't. That was kind of tough. I was out there when President Kennedy was assassinated, and I actually took the message of his assassination that day he was killed, and I was the first one on the ship to know that, because we were the only source of communications by Morse code, and took that up and gave it to the captain.
That's a pretty amazing thing. That's always something I put in your short biography whenever I have to use one. That you relayed that message. As me being a journalist, I think there was no more exciting time to be a journalist than when President Kennedy passed away, because there was something about being the first one on the scene to get the story. If you were the first one on the scene at something like that, you got a Pulitzer Prize. You know, you don't have that kind of journalism now.
No, you do not.
You know, and so that to me is a very tragic but very exciting time, because newspapers were the way of reaching the world in those days.
Yep. Like I said, the only communication we had out there in North Atlantic was Morse code. And do they even use Morse code anymore on the ship? I don't think so. I don't think they do.
So that's something totally outdated. I mean, that's something really special to have learned, because you don't even have to learn that now.
Yeah, well, I think, the ham operators, and they still use it some, but the military, I'm sure, does. They've moved on to more modern things.
So then you come out of the Coast Guard in 1966, and you go straight in the very next day. Your friend Bill Collins gets you on with the High Point Police Department, and you worked there for 8 years in the height of the Civil Rights Movement. You worked with one of the very first African American police officers of the High Point Police Department. That was your friend, Mr. Ben Collins.
Yes.
But I guess what I want to ask you about that is you worked for a very prolific man by the name of Chief Laurie Pritchett, who was a key figure in the Civil Rights Movement, in that he was chief at Albany, Georgia, when Martin Luther King was there, and was actually involved with an arrest with Dr. King, but was one of the few chiefs who did not use violence or brute force to move him along, him and his crusaders. But what I want to ask you, because I know you greatly admired Chief Pritchett, what was some things that he said to you personally, or things that you learned from him? Because I know you thought very much of him.
I guess I just learned how important public relations is in police work, and how important it is to just get the public involved in what you're doing. And he really did that, and he involved the African American community, which probably saved us.
Right.
Time. I mean, it was a tough time.
And at that time, it was not easy to take a stand like that.
No, it was tough. It was tough being out there.
Yeah.
Riots going on, and it was tough.
He really taught you a lot, didn't he?
Oh, he was an amazing man. I felt like, and still do. Felt like he was great then. If I tried to copy anybody in what I did, it would have been him. Because he was such a good man, and he was one of the first people to start the community type policing and getting the community involved.
And that's something that you did when you came to Wythe County in 1980, when you met my beautiful mother, and that's how I came to be here and have my home here. Um, and sort of when you came to Wythe County, you and Wayne Pike kind of had to work the department from the ground up, and I guess that community policing that you learned from him, that's still going on today, and I guess that the people in charge today learned that from you. I know that's what Sheriff Foster says.
It has been learned, hopefully, embedded and throughout the country now. It's people understand that you got to do it. So it's.
Sure, but I think it's especially important in small towns like Wytheville because.
Well, no doubt, no question.
We are.
And Pulaski and Vinton, where I was, mm-hmm. It's very important to small towns. You're right.
So I guess for the time that you were in Wythe County, probably the biggest, or your tenure there as chief deputy, probably the biggest thing you did was the FBI Academy. Is that right?
Well, that's kind of a highlight of any officer's career that can attend the FBI Academy. It's a 12-week program for police executives, and you're in there with people from every state and 11 foreign countries. So yeah, it's quite an experience, and you build relationships throughout the world mm-hmm. that you can call on and have it as a resource and run things by them. It's just absolutely helped me through the rest of my career.
Do you have anybody left that you still talk to from the academy?
I haven't talked to anybody, and that's been many years. It's 1983, so it's been a while. I did up until a few years ago hear from one or two, and we'd talk back and forth. But most of them, like me, most of them are now retired and gone on to different things. So, like anywhere, when you leave, you say you'll stay together and get together, but you never do. But I always had somebody I knew while they were working, while I was working, that I knew I could call and get information that I needed, or just suggestions or advice. But it was a great experience.
And then when you left Wythe County, you went to Pulaski as chief for 6 years, and then you went to Vinton as chief for 11 years, and you were only supposed to stay 5 or 6 years, but you liked that so well, you ended up staying 11.
I did. Vinton was such a nice little town, and I got there and built the department, went through accreditation, got the department accredited, and just had such great people to work for and work with. It was just one of the best situations. It was hard to leave, so I did stay on a while, sure did.
And one of the first in the state to be accredited at that time, if I remember correctly.
At that time, one of the first to do a state accreditation.
And you were working on it with Pulaski, but it didn't quite get there before the opportunity for Vinton came up.
Right, we were working on it, but it didn't transpire. But we did do it in Vinton.
Yep. So then I'll take you away a little bit from talking about your career, because if people want to know about your career, they can buy the book I spent 2 years writing.
That's right.
And completely surprised you with on the 50th anniversary of your becoming a police officer.
Yes, you did.
And that was the proudest. That is the proudest achievement of my career as a writer.
Well, it's a pretty proud moment for me as well.
Being able to do that and interview 24 people right under your nose, and you didn't have a clue about it.
Did not have a clue, for sure.
And so I'm just glad it worked out as well as it did, because we have quotes and testaments and accounts from a lot of people who are no longer with us, and it's important that they're there, and I'm glad their voices were heard too.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I really appreciate it now more than ever.
Yeah, it's an important. All of it was an important documentation that needed to be done, and I'm glad I'm tickled to be the one to do it. But
absolutely, you did it.
Lots of grandchildren. What is it? 7 grandchildren.
I think that's true. Yeah.
7 grandchildren and 6 great grandchildren. You have grandchildren older than me.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. But it says you have your older boys, Travis and John, and then there's my sister, who's the girl and the baby of the family, and who is her daddy's heart. She's in Charleston with her new husband, Lewis. And then you have the grandpuppies, Sophie and Tucker, who love their pop.
Yeah, well, they're special.
Who love their pop very much. But what would you say have been the most enjoyable times of your life? I know we talked earlier about Disney World. That was a big one for all of us. But what would you say?
Probably the most fun times was when we were going on vacation, whether we're going to the beach or to Disney World, and just seeing you guys just so happy and doing what you were doing, and and just enjoying yourself so much. I mean, that's probably as enjoyable as it gets to see you guys at the beach, at Disney World. That and certainly our holidays together, just great.
Yeah, the Christmas Eve steaks were hard to beat. I was saying that, in the article that you were the master of the steaks. Nobody could do a steak like you, and you would get out there and grill steaks on Christmas Eve, and that would be A Christmas Carol's our favorite story, so we always said that was our Christmas goose. And those.
Well, I've learned that the good steak comes from good meat, and we always had our meat cut out at Ryder's Grocery. Shorty cut it out there.
Oh.
You can't cook good steak if you don't have a good steak, and he always cut a real good piece of meat. That's
very interesting. Shorty of Ryder's Grocery.
And then I took credit for the good steak, but a lot of it was the good steak I got from Shorty.
Well, and it's very interesting that growing up you didn't have anything like that. You didn't have. Well, I guess you didn't have a lot of meat. It was beans and corn.
Well, we had it was just prepared differently.
Yeah.
We certainly had pork, ham, and a lot of pork meat. Occasionally had beef, but it was just prepared differently because I didn't know what a steak was until I was 17 years old, We had some beef, but it would be like my mother would put it up in cans, and it'd be canned,
Oh, okay.
It'd be like a stew beef, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
But not as a steak. And a hamburger was just a treat because you only got those maybe occasionally on a weekend.
Right, on a Saturday.
Yeah.
But now her beans and cornbread would be a treat.
That'd be the biggest treat I could have.
Because you can get hamburgers are anywhere and everywhere now.
Yeah, that's true.
And they're not even as good as they were back then, I'm sure.
No, for sure not. Don't seem to be. Maybe they are, but in your memory, everything is always better. But
Christmas was always an embarrassment of riches. We always had an abundance of things. And Christmas Eves, I remember the big tree that Mommy always used to do, and we always had a wealth of presents, and still would all.
Your mother always took Christmas to the next level.
Yeah, she certainly did.
I can't say it wasn't a lot of fun, but it might have been a little overkill, but it was great.
Well, we enjoyed it to the hilt for sure. And Sil always put that Santa hat on, and she was the one to pass out the presents. And she has our mother's zeal for Christmas, because she goes overboard at Christmas time too. Always, she loves Christmas, and that's because of the wonderful Christmases that we had, and watching the movies and the Halloween tradition. She always loved Halloween, and we always seemed to be four people going in four different directions, but we would come together on Halloween to watch Hocus Pocus on that old video, on that old VCR player, even when it wouldn't hardly play anymore. And we'd all.
She still loves Halloween, just not as much fun as it used to be with the kids,
Yeah.
But she still loves it.
Well, Bella loves it, and I think that's a lot because of her grandmommy. Her grandmommy took her trick-or-treating almost every year as she was growing up, and always took care of her costumes. We had a Halloween costume wedding that we went to last week, and she provided us with the costumes for that.
Oh, I tickle her to do that, yeah. She was so happy about it.
Anytime you need anything like that, Grandmommy's the one to go to. And Bella will say, well, I need a costume. I'll call Grandmommy.
Yeah.
And Grandmommy takes care of it. And she's a wonderful Grandmommy. I wish you weren't so far away.
Well, me too, buddy.
That's what's hard, is not, as I said, I didn't appreciate or I took advantage of the fact that I got to see you all every day, day in and day out, and now maybe only see you once or twice a year, and that's difficult.
Yeah, well, we're just at this place now. I'm kind of at the mercy of my doctors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can't make any long moves.
Yeah. Well,
I'm pretty much stuck here, as she is, but But
you all wanted to retire and go to the beach, and 11 years ago, that's what you did, and I think you've enjoyed your time at the beach.
We have.
I've enjoyed our conversation, and I appreciate you talking to me. This will always mean a lot to me.
All right, buddy. Well, it's always a pleasure talking to you.
Well, I love you very much. We all do.